this is Joey at Moon's Creative Mayhem, and today we're going to be making this Fortnite chest for all of your little Fortnite toys to be stored in. We're going to be using pens and paint, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's get going. So in our house we really enjoy playing Fortnite, and over Christmas we got this really cool set of Fortnite weapons. They're really high quality actually. They're little metal keyrings, and they came in a box of 6 each, and I have 12 here all together. I didn't keep the cardboard box that they actually came in. It was an okay looking presentation box, but I wanted to make something a bit more special. So I have this wooden box here, and what I was going to do is paint this up into being a proper Fortnite chest to keep them in. I'm not going to be able to fit them all in there, so I was going to pick out 6 of the favourite ones to go in here, and then maybe make a second box later on down the line. So I was going to choose this one.
Scar, the rocket launcher, the OG blast rifle, one of the best shotguns in Fortnite, the pickaxe, sniper rifle.
So there's my 6, and I'm going to paint up this chest so it looks really cool to store them in.
So the first thing I did was paint the box with white acrylic gesso, just to make a smooth, plain base to paint the gouache on top of. Next, I drew out the basic shapes onto the Fortnite chest, so the metal bars on top of the box, the slats that go across, and the latch on the front. I used a light brown and a light grey pen just in case the lines showed through.
Okay, so we've drawn on all of the different shapes we need to start painting the Fortnite chest with the gouache. We've got the metal bars that go around the chest, we've got the latch on the front, we've got the little pull handles at the side, and we're all ready to go with the gouache.
I painted the colours on in solid blocks for each slat on the chest. I started off with mixing white with yellow ochre and a little bit of bright yellow. Gouache is a paint that gets mixed with water, and the more water you add into it, the more transparent it becomes, a little bit like watercolour. I wanted the blocks to be quite solid, so I didn't water down the paint too much, and I kept it at the same amount throughout. As we got darker towards the bottom of the box, I mixed in some burnt umber and some red. I painted the bottom of the chest slightly darker than the top of the chest so that it would look like it was in shadow and appear to be more 3D. Once all of the colours were blocked in on the top of the chest, I mixed burnt umber, red and yellow ochre to make darker colours to add in contours throughout the grain. I painted lines to differentiate between each slat and then random lines in between that just to show any cracks or hollow parts in the wood. I made sure to keep all of the brush strokes in a horizontal direction across the slats. In places, I also added some highlights using yellow ochre, bright yellow and a lot of white. Because the bottom of the chest I was painting darker than the top to create a shadow area, I used burnt umber, black, a small amount of red and yellow ochre to create the shadows for the bottom of the box. Again, I painted on random lines. I painted the whole chest using 6 colours: black, white, vermilion, primary yellow, yellow ochre and burnt umber. Next, I mixed up white, yellow ochre and bright yellow to make a very pale colour to add in highlights all the way around the chest.
Okay, so we've painted on all of the wood grain in the gouache and I'm ready to rinse out and clean my pot. Once the paint's all dry, we're going to get some pro markers, which is my favourite to use, but you could use a Sharpie or Copics, whatever you like. We're going to use some pro markers to put in the detail, and we're also going to paint in the grey metal bands that are on here as well. But we've just got to wait for the paint to dry first, so I'm going to come along with a nice clean pot.
I mixed up a really light grey colour using black and white, and I painted a smooth continuous line for the metal bands. The line follows all the way around the chest. I used different shades of grey to paint highlights and shadows across the band. First of all, I put in blocky shadows. The middle had a highlight that was just white, and the outer sections had a darker grey in a block. Once I'd blocked in the rectangular highlights and shadows, I added an extra shadow on the right side of every band in a darker grey, sometimes almost black colour, and I made sure that the paint was still wet and blended while I did this. On the left-hand side of each rectangle, I highlighted in white, and I continued to do this all the way around the chest. I used a mix of greys again for the side of the chest and painted around the edges and the latch. I used a pale grey pen to draw circles for where the bolts would be. There's 3 bolts on each side on the top of the chest and 4 larger bolts on the front. I used white paint to paint circles for the bolts so that they would stand out. I usually prefer not to outline things in pen or dark colours because it can make things look cartoony, but obviously because this is a Fortnite box, it seemed like a good idea. Using a dark brown pro marker, I drew in lines where the slats are, and I also drew over some of those random lines to show cracks and gaps between the slats. I took a black pro marker and drew in shadows along the edges of the metal bars. I also drew in shadows around the latches, on the sides and the front of the chest. Using a black pen, I drew straight lines on the insides of the bolts for some detail. Then I painted in the keyhole with black paint. I checked all the remaining sides of the box and used the black and brown pen to add in extra details. I sprayed the finished chest with a clear acrylic varnish to make sure that it was both shiny and waterproof.
Okay, so that's it. We've made our Fortnite chest. ready to store our Fortnite keyring weapons. And what do you think, Moonlight? Do you like it? Pretty good? We think it's pretty good. So that's part 1, painting the outside of the box. And if you want to continue watching, then we're going to do part 2, where we actually do the inside edge as well. So it's going to be really cool. Thanks for watching and see you next time.